Welcome, those of us in person and those of us in our hotel rooms or many miles away. I'm Jamie Adelson Goldstein, and it is my great delight to welcome you to our panel, Pairing ESOL Textbooks with AI. And you can see that we have brilliant presenters with us today, panelists today. Let's see if I can make that move. Okay, it doesn't seem to want to move. Maybe I have it upside down. Rachel, the goddess of all things technical, will move the slide. Or not. I tried the arrow key. Okay, there we go. I will introduce all these people to you. You'll see their faces, those of you at home or in your hotel rooms. We're starting with introductions. We're going to look at insights in terms of putting AI and textbooks together. We'll then deal with the considerations, which I know is uppermost in many of our minds, and then we'll have Q&A. But before we get there, we'd like to know who's in the room. So if you would take your smartphones out, please, and I will move so that you can actually use the QR code. And use the Menti, those of you at those of you online and those of you in the room. Escape, right? Get to my Menti. Okay, I'm going to give it a couple of seconds. And we'll go over to the Menti. Maybe. I think I just lost the slides. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, thank you. So in case you missed the QR code. And so we're looking to see those of us that are instructors or tutors, those of us that are administrators, PD providers, curriculum developers, or the ubiquitous others, equally valuable human beings, just not on this list. And if you want, for those of you that are attending virtually, if you want to put in the chat who you are, Drew will let us know. Anybody here want to say, I'm an other and I'm proud and this is what I am? No takers? Okay. An instructor in the chat, well, they have their own space. Okay, well, we're very happy to have you here. Now I'd like you to do a little thinking about your feelings about AI. Could you choose up to 3 different words? So you have a spectrum of words to choose from that describe your feelings about AI. Let's see how we feel. No. Oh, curious is excited started, but then we moved to curious. I love a word cloud. Okay, well, I think we're still moving and shaking, but I think I'd like to get us to having, you could continue with this, but I want to show you what else is on the Menti for you. As we're having our panelists speak, we're going to be asking you to pose your questions even in the room and virtually on the Menti, and to please indicate which panelist you'd like to have address the question. This way there's, I don't know, some equity in everybody being able to use the same platform. And then if by any chance you can't get on the Menti and you are online, then you can certainly use the chat and Drew will let us know. Drew, wave to the people. They can't see you, but wave. That's Drew waving. Okay, so now we will go. It would be great if I put on my glasses. Yes, please. Would you do? I'll talk to the people. Okay, so let me introduce 2 of our panelists that you can see online, Christy Reyes and Claire Hambley. Christy is a tenured professor at Miracosta Community College, ESL. Is there something else I should say, Christy, in terms of the ESL? Are you the chair now?
No, no, and no, thank you.
Okay. And Claire is, I have my exact word for Claire, and they're very kind and complimentary. Claire is the portfolio product manager at Oxford University Press. So we have multiple viewpoints coming today. Donna Price, who's going to come stand at the camera to show you. Wave to the people, Donna. Donna is Professor Emerita at San Diego Community College, longtime ESL maven. And we have Victoria Pugh, co-founder of Pace AI. Thank you for waving to the people. We have Rachel Riggs, AI goddess, technical advisor on AI, and what's the extra part? Emerging technologies for world education. And then Katie Welch. Yeah, it's good to get those. And I have Katie is Dr. Katie Welch, educational consultant at Welch Education. So I will invite our panelists to have a seat, all but our first panelist. And we're going to be talking about pairing AI with ESOL textbooks. The question that will guide us today is, how can adult ESOL educators enhance textbook-driven instruction with AI tools? And we're talking about issues of customization, augmentation, advantages, challenges, ethics, and additional challenges. So without further ado, we will start with the insights, and we'll ask Claire Hambly to take the floor.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to let you know that what we're looking at, Christy and I, is we're looking at a door, so we can't see the people in the room. I wish we could see your faces, but I'm going to imagine a room full of 37 plus people sitting in the room, I hope, which is fantastic. Thank you so much for joining today. I'm really honored to be kicking off this panel. My name's Claire Hambly. As you know, I work with OUP. I'm the publisher of products like Step Forward and Oxford Picture Dictionary, and I'm calling in from the East Coast today, from Connecticut, near New Haven. So what I wanted to do today was to kick us off by reminding ourselves of why we're all here, which is, of course, our students, our learners, and to think about the approach that we'll take in relation to AI in our ESOL books when we put learners at the center of what we do. And I know that as educators, you're already thinking about this a great deal. So if we take a look at the next slide and we ask ourselves, what is a learner-centered approach to AI in the ESOL classroom? I know that if we were sitting down at a table together and chatting about this question, you'd have lots of really great ideas. But what I'd like to do is walk through a couple on the next slide. We're going to take a look and just keep clicking. Rachel or Jamie, I can't see who has the clicker right now. We'll take a look first at click personalization. Next click, outcomes, data. Next one, feasibility. And so I've given here an example from the Step Forward series. This is level 3. This is a role play, really common activity in classrooms. And if we apply these 4 points here, when are we using AI and for what purpose? We would ask ourselves, well, how would AI help my learners personalize this role play to their own situations? And I had a go with Copilot, which is my company sanctioned AI tool through Microsoft Teams. And Copilot did a good job of helping me to customize this role play to my own context or to other contexts. What were the outcomes? Well, as a learner, of course, I could get to practice that role play as many times as I needed to or had patience for. What about data? Well, I got nice feedback from the AI tool. My instructor wasn't hearing anything about it, so there was no data flowing back to my teacher to tell them about how I'd improved or what I'd learned or done. So as an educator, I'd want to think about how else am I getting that data return through an exercise like this? And then finally, feasibility. Devices, tools, internet, bandwidth, accessibility. these are all questions that we would want to ask ourselves in thinking about making our use of AI learner-centered. And I have one more thing to share with you in relation to insights, and this is on the next slide. And you can look this up, but it's also linked to in the resources for our session today. And this is Furs et al., the AI assessment scale. And Leon Furs, based in Australia, this work applies equally across K-12 and further education, higher education. From a learner point of view, as an educator, are you thinking about your activities as informal assessment, assessment for learning, assessment for helping students to progress? You may find yourself able to apply your activities along a scale like this, starting off with no AI at all. We're not using AI for this. We're doing everything in class, on paper, in person. And you may take that through a number of different stages. Do we use AI for planning? Is it an AI collaboration? AI is helping me with this assignment or exercise, all the way through to full AI, where it does it for you, or finally AI exploration, which is very, very interesting for us all. And that's thinking about what's the critical thinking involved in this? Are there AI tools that I prefer over others? And using a more creative approach to thinking about how to use AI in your classroom with your learners, or how to encourage your learners to use AI for themselves. So to wrap up my short section here on insights, my key insight, this will be no surprise to anybody who's listening. We know that generative AI has potential to bring huge benefits to our learners. But just as with any other selection of materials or any other thinking about pedagogy, we want to be thoughtful and principled in how we incorporate it into our teaching and learning journey. So that's it from me. I'll hand over to our next panelist for their insight.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Claire. Katie?
Hi, thank you. So I think that I am actually one of those others where I don't quite fit in a category because part of my role is as a university professor at the University of Texas at Arlington, just down the street here, about 15 minutes away. And in that capacity, I get to train the next generation of ESL teachers, and I also get to administrate. I'm an administrator. That's the word I'm looking for. Trying to make sure I'm on the screen here. Administrator of a small program. And so I have teachers that are working with English learners, and I get to work alongside those teachers. One of my teachers last semester came to me and said, I feel very irrelevant in my role these days because of AI. He's an advanced writing teacher, and he said, I just don't know where I fit in this world of AI anymore. And so I allowed him to have a little bit of time this semester where instead of being so much in the classroom, he has a little bit of time to explore AI. And I've noticed over the semester progression where he went from feeling lost to feeling kind of skeptical to now he's creating, his name is Josh, and he's creating the Josh 2.0, a chat bot that he's going to be using in his classroom. And so he has come to the realization that AI can be a co-teacher or a teaching assistant or a thought partner for him in the class. Originally, Josh was thinking that AI was going to supplant him, but what he has realized that instead is that AI is going to supplement what he is doing in his classroom. This supplement, not supplant, is a phrase that's often used in the context of funding and government programs, but I think it applies here as well. And so I think the question for us is, how do we help teachers to supplement well? If AI is a supplement, how do we think about supplementing well? Another hat that I get to wear in addition to university professor is I get to work a lot with Cambridge University Press. And something I've noticed about Cambridge is that they really work on trying to help teachers to supplement well. A while back, they partnered with Kahoot to make sure that if teachers were going to be going to Kahoot, that they would have a Kahoot that was exactly tailored to the ventures lesson that they were working on or whatever their curriculum was. Recently, they partnered with Ellie to make sure that those who were going to Ellie for supplemental resources were going to have something targeted and aligned to the curriculum. But even with lots of amazing supplementary materials, we know that teachers often go out into the wide internet looking for resources, and some of it's excellent and some of it not so much. One of the things that AI allows us to do is to create highly tailored supplementary materials for our teachers that they can then use with their learners that are tightly aligned with the curriculum. A couple of examples of this is often teachers who are teaching multi-level classrooms are trying to figure out how to differentiate. AI offers the opportunity for a teacher to go in and say, okay, this is my situation, this is my context, these are my learners. How can I differentiate activities and assignments for them? Last year at COABE, I remember being in kind of a roundtable discussion, and the teacher next to me said, I just wish that I had leveled readers as companion text for my textbook. And I said, well, how about AI? And that thought had never occurred to her. Yet this is a wonderful opportunity for teachers to be able to have those resources that they really need and want for their classroom. So I think to think about how is AI a thought partner for teachers, we need to think like a teacher. How can we help these teachers supplement well? Well, one area might be offering professional development to help teachers upskill in AI for lesson planning. Prompt engineering to ensure textbook alignments. That way, when they are going to AI, that they are using the correct language to make sure that what the output is aligned with their textbook. And also a needs assessment about when and why and how teachers supplement in the first place, so we know when they're going outside of the textbook, why are they doing that? And then how can we help them do that with excellence? And I'll pass it off to Donna.
Yes. It's not. Click on here. So where's your? I'm just gonna. We're getting a few things up on the.
Is this on? Yeah. Hi, everybody. So we know after listening to these people so far that AI can transform textbooks into interactive tools, making learning more fun and interactive and effective. So do we still need textbooks? Well, I better say yes, because I wouldn't be on this panel if I said no. Yes. So absolutely. And I want to talk a little bit about the rationale. Textbooks make sure that standards are met and lessons are taught systematically for language acquisition. We all know that in many schools across the country, the majority of teachers are part-time. So when they use a textbook, they know that the lessons will move seamlessly from one activity to another, covering the material that's required in adult ed. Also, textbooks encourage interaction using different modalities, group work, pair work, whole class work, and student-centered activities. And you know, the collaborative activities in Ventures in Cambridge 1, that's an example of you want something more fun, you want something to reinforce the lesson, so you do a conversation card activity, or you do a stand up and find someone who. So these activities are also big community builders. Also, I learned as a co-author of Ventures that publishing a textbook doesn't take a minute. There's a lot that goes behind it. Authors, editors, and researchers work together for a long time to integrate the required standards and competencies. And lastly, the last thing I'd like to say about textbooks, it's really the scaffolding that supports the framework of the course syllabus. So I'm going to show you an example from Ventures. This is from book 3, which is intermediate, unit 2. It's in the unit about school. And this is a reading about strategies for learning English. How can I learn English better and faster? So the students read this, and then after they read it, they want to speak and they need to speak. Well, good, because in Ventures, we have speaking right after it, where they sit in groups or pairs and they talk about the different strategies they have and they interview each other. And then after that, there's a writing activity where they write about their strategies. They need more speaking. So I've learned the past few years many different AI apps for speaking practice. And I chose this one just Pi. It's called Pi. And Pi stands for Personal Intelligence. It's free. It's super easy to download on your phone. And I picked it because I could just figure it out really fast. And I thought my students would really like it. You'll see it because I recorded myself. And the beginning is a little bit slow, but I wanted you to see that Pi is kind of chatty and a little bit friendly. And just as you would give your students a focus question when you show a video or video clip, I'm going to give you a focus question while you're listening. So what do I ask PI a few times? All right, so listen to a question that I asked a few times. Okay, here we go. So be patient a second. Okay, so what did I ask several times? To slow down. Did he slow down? No, he didn't. So the good news is that the students have to ask clarification or those functional phrases of please, would you talk slower? Would you slow down? I didn't catch that. The other thing that's good news for Ventures is that there is a way to control the speed so they can make it faster or slower. And so I think that's a good thing to know. Also, I want to tell you also there's some resources. There's chat. I showed the difference between Chat GPT and Pi, and it's in your resources. One other thing that's the good news is, do you ever have your students say to you, teacher, I understand you so well, but when I go out in the world, I don't understand. And this is, well, go to Pi, and listen and listen and listen, and that's real. So to end that my part and give you key insights, obviously, it's not one or the other. It's both together, and AI, as you can see, can increase engagement.
So I just want to let our at-home audience know, or our virtual audience know, that we didn't share sound on that video, but you'll be able to get the slides in the resources. It's Christy's turn. And so
Thank you,
now
Donna.
we're
I wanna
on to
say-
Christy.
Donna has been my mentor since I first started this profession 27 years ago. And so, can you hear me okay? It's kind of ironic, here I am following her. I'm going to talk a little bit about the practitioner side. I'm in the classroom. I'm down in the trenches. And I totally agree with Donna that textbooks are not going to go away. I think that textbooks and the robust materials that are created with them, the teachers' manuals, are especially useful for beginning teachers. I think across the country, we're seeing a lot of folks retire in our field and a lot of new teachers. And to just hand them a course outline and say, teach it, if they have those materials, can be very helpful. For someone like me, any of you, been teaching for a long time, I find great joy in coming up with new topics and creating new things to supplement and augment what I already use with textbooks. So go ahead, next slide, please. So as I talk a little bit about some ways that I've been using generative AI tools, just keep in mind I do teach intermediate and advanced students. That's not to say that any of this can't be done with beginning students, as Donna just demonstrated. So using Donna's textbook as an example, I've been using her textbook Venture Transitions for a long, long time, even before it was part of the Venture series. When it was called Skills for Success. And there's one unit that I really love, because even though in this class that I'm talking about right here, an intermediate conversation class, even though about half of the students are employed in the job, in employment, a good other half of them are stay-at-home parents, retired, and elderly folks. So this unit really can apply to any of our students, and they really love this topic. So I love the listening that gives students that practice with note-taking, that academic skill. But I teach at night, and I can't see you all, but if any of you can raise your hand if you have ever taught in the evenings. You, thank you, Claire. Okay. You
Almost
can
everybody.
probably empathize with me that they're so tired, and to just have heads down in textbook is not the way to go. So I used this unit from Ventures, but I need my students up and moving. They some of them start work at 5 a.m. and come straight from work to our class, which meets one night a week for 3 hours. So I was thinking, how could I get them up and moving? Coming back from COVID, what do we used to do? Oh, that four corners. Well, I could use my whole weekend coming up with scenarios. That would probably take me quite a bit of time, but knowing my students that some of them are not employed, I wanted to include some topics that are appropriate for adults related to this topic of attitude. So with the help of a large language model, I got so many different scenarios, and they were starters, of course, and I picked and chose, and then we followed up with a problem solving and dialogue writing and role play. So that's a simple way that I just used a large language model to kind of augment what was happening with the textbook. Next, please. One back. Okay, so I teach students with low levels of education up through folks who have bachelor's, master's, and even PhDs. And they started talking about ChatGPT right when it came out. So this is in my advanced integrated skills course. And I knew that I needed to start working on getting them AI literacy. And how could I do that? So I came across a really great video that is linked in the resources that you will see. A professor at New School and also a Cambridge University Press author, Jeannie Lambert. And she has this wonderful video where she talks about teaching writing in the age of AI. And how we can get students to start getting AI literate is by helping them learn what AI is around them. So I searched through textbooks and I didn't find a lot on autonomous vehicles. Here in my local area in California, many of the K-12s have a cell phone ban in the schools. And so that's important for parents to be able to understand and talk about. Real-time AI interpretation devices. There are earbuds now that you can pop in your ear and speak to someone in another language instantaneously translated into your ear. So our topic for that discussion was, is it even a valuable thing to learn another language? Surprisingly, or maybe not, of course, my students talked about the cultural aspects of learning another language. We did some practice using hands-on with AI image generators, but we discussed, is AI generated art real art? We read about ChatGPT and students came up with norms for student use. With the automation that's happening with many of my students' jobs, we also read about, will AI take your job? And then we do EL Civics in my program. And so there is a textbook unit on service learning, volunteering as a step into employment, but I also needed some more local resources for students. So nowadays, with many of the large language models, they don't only give you the data that has been fed into the system, but they can scour or grab the data from the web sources as well. A couple of topics that my students requested. By their request, I always ask students at the beginning of the term or provide a list of topics, but they came to me and requested mental health. So we had a unit on stress and mental health. And ironically, that same term, I had a student who was studying to be a psychotherapist. So I was able to hand it over to someone who is a budding expert. But we also talked about a topic that's in the news, young people using, and even older people using chatbots as friends, girlfriends, boyfriends, and even therapists. So perhaps you've heard of character AI. There is a therapist. And so these are topics that I could not really find in textbooks because, as already was mentioned, textbooks take a long time to put together. And so I use tools like large language models. I use Diffit, Tweet, and some other ed tech specific generative AI tools to help me with the lesson plan ideation, getting texts, coming up with questions, getting questions for videos to support. A couple of other topics I don't have listed here. I'm sure we have some teachers in this space who love using music. I do not because I know nothing about music, but repeatedly my students were asking for in the conversation class to have music as a topic. So I used a large language model to help me figure out how I would teach that topic. One other that I'm thinking about is a student approached me and let me know that in China, nowadays, the way that you make a purchase is in a store is with your face. So facial recognition is another topic that probably would be good to include textbook writers coming up because that's a fraught issue here in the United States. So those are some topics my students found great interest in because these are topics in the news. So next, please. Okay, and then we can use image generators. The image that you saw just flash on the slide is just on the fly. Students were doing a paired reading and a student was really struggling with the I and the E. And so he wrote on a piece of paper, a bird with a beard drinking a beer, but how he pronounced it was a beer with a beer drinking a beer. And so on the fly, we can model how to use many of these tools with our students. And so that was on the last slide, but here we are on this slide. Okay, so a lot of textbooks do culminate in some sort of project, and we know that for our discipline, teaching English language learners, that projects can integrate all the skills, build in digital literacy, visual literacy, all the literacies, and really can help students build confidence because when they present their projects, they're walking on air afterwards, right? So I have one project that I've been using for more than 10 years, and I got this idea a long, long time ago, but there is a textbook that has a whole unit about logos. So back when I first started doing that project with my students, they were using a generative AI tool to create their logos, and I didn't even know that it was AI. But these are some different projects that I've used the large language models to figure out how to plan the lesson, how to include the English language proficiency standards, how to create a rubric, at least as starters. So you can see the links to those in the resources provided at the end. About personalization and privacy. A lot of textbooks include writing for employment, like resumes, cover letters, and applications. But a lot of my students, I have no idea what is required for their professions or the jobs that they want to go into. So we can use these tools to help them learn to take a job announcement and customize their resumes and cover letters. Also, I've had students who've asked me to help them prepare for a job that I don't know much about. And so while textbooks can go over the typically asked questions in a job interview, we can help students use these tools to see what the questions might be for a specific job. The next one refers to privacy. In my program, we do these EL civics, and a lot of textbooks units have this too, where students are filling out forms, and citizenship courses, right, where they fill out forms. And that private information floating around is not really a good idea. So way before ChatGPT became public, my dean at my college, I approached him about this issue, and he said, why don't you create personas? And at that time I was thinking, okay, well, there goes about a week of my time coming up with all these personas. But this is just one example that you see on the right. I asked ChatGPT in this instance to create 3 personas for 3 people, various levels of experience applying for a job, and then had students get together with one assigned persona and take what they've learned about writing resumes and cover letters, but write a cover letter and resume for someone else. And finally, for school and work scenarios, sometimes my students come to me and they say, I'm having this trouble with a coworker. Can you help me write this email? And yes, while I would love to give them all my time, and I have done that, we can also help students see how they can use these tools for school and work writing as a starter. But as you'll see throughout this presentation with our other panelists, and I want to also say, always be the human in the loop. Next, please. So perspectives from me, someone who's in the trenches, these tools are great, great time savers for ideation, coming up with ideas, for coming up with new materials, but only ever starters. Fast does not always equate to quality, so always be the human in loop, checking, verifying, because we know that the output can be inaccurate. And why? It's because human language is inaccurate. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy.
Thanks, Christy. Okay. Hi, everyone. Good to see you. My name's Rachel Briggs. You already introduced me. I don't need to do that part. And I am a former ESOL instructor who used Ventures and Oxford Picture Dictionary. And now what I do is a lot of research and training around the integration of technology, including AI, into adult education, primarily ESOL for ESOL learners. And I think I'm just going to share some of the ways that I've seen the teachers that I work with use AI to extend and expand on the textbooks that, of course, are a core aspect of their teaching and are the biggest time saver, by the way. Textbooks and teaching materials that teachers have are a huge time saver. So, I think one of the most exciting things that AI can help us do with an ESOL textbook is differentiate and accommodate learner variability, which we know in adult education is the norm, right? To have multi-level classes with many different backgrounds, culturally, linguistically, and academically. I'm sorry that this microphone is going. So I think in 3 key areas, we can think about this. Accessing the content. So if I have a textbook or I have any kind of teaching content, how can I increase access to it? How can I increase engagement with it? And then how can I how can I encourage learner persistence, which we know is tied heavily to learner motivation and relevance to learners' goals. I think they won't hear me online if I use that, but let me know if they're having trouble. So in terms of access, I think we all know that large language models, there are large language models in many different languages, and we're able to easily translate. So this is an example of what some instructions that we might see in a textbook. And I recall having a learner once who spoke Twi, and I could not find, we didn't have a dictionary that translated things into Twi. And so we used Google Translate, but we could only do it word by word, and it was really painstaking. So I think one great area to work with your textbook and work with AI is in translanguaging, finding opportunities to give learners things in their home language that enable them to access the learning that you're wanting them to do. In terms of modality and readability, so how can we present things to learners in different modalities in terms of seeing things, hearing things, and two tools that we have field tested in adult ESOL settings are Adobe's Liquid Mode, which supports readability by taking written text and expanding font size, format, and layout so that it's more readable for learners. It's a free tool that can be used with any PDF. And so it's one way that AI can help learners access the learning that they're supposed to be doing. Also, Pace AI, I won't talk too much about it except to say that we did field test Pace AI in adult ESOL settings. And one of the most used features in when learners were reading content in Pace AI and getting those automated personalized practice opportunities was the audio reader. So pressing that play button and hearing things while they're reading. So I think those are, just being able to see things in different ways increases access for learners to the content that we want them to learn. In terms of engagement, we know that learners are going to engage better if things are leveled appropriately. And there are plenty of different leveling tools. Pace AI is one of them. Hemingway Editor is one that I love because it gives a lot of transparency into the ways that the level is changing so that you have a lot of control over the different aspects of the language and how it's being changed to different grade levels. And then in terms of persistence, we know that learners, especially adult learners, when they have choice and things are very relevant to their goals and to the topics that interest them, they persist in adult education programs. So AI, I think, helps us take whatever core content we do have and adapt it to different topics of interest, different languages, different levels. This is an example. We are doing a generative AI makerspace with educators, and we wanted them to push into things like using AI to differentiate and then evaluate how quality that was. So were you able to target the same language skills when AI changed content into to be about different topics? So this is an example that one of the participants did of taking a dialogue for a role play and offering it to learners both with the same language features and the same learning objectives. Did it go out completely already? Okay. Can people hear me online? Let me just switch to the system. And so presenting the role play in the two topic areas of calling tech support and working with a tax preparer, right? So you might have learners who are interested in practicing in the context of seeking support using their technology. You might have others who choose and are more interested in practicing those same target language features in the context of working with a tax preparer. It is tax season. I am interested in that. So some key insights from my side is our mantra at the EdTech Center: goals before tools, thinking about what is the goal, what's the objective of the learning, and then choosing tools that fit in there. The tools are abundant. So we really can build up a little toolkit for ourselves that will help us reach the goals that we have. And focusing on, like, I think it was Donna, maybe it was Claire, Learning first, better learning for more learners. That's the focus. And so the ways that we use AI to expand and support our use of ESOL textbooks should be with that focus of better learning for more learners. And now Victoria, my friend and colleague. Oh, that doesn't work anymore. So
Sorry, thank you, Rachel. All right. Do you want me to just? Sure. Where are you? It's already on, or? Okay. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was just trying to get the camera on, but no worry.
Oh, okay. You mean here, just?
Yes.
Okay.
You have to do the little grid.
Ah,
Okay.
okay.
And you can wave and say.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm going to just minimize here. And I've been told I have a quiet voice, so I'm really going to try to shout. So I'm Victoria. I'm the co-founder of PACE, and I am definitely in that other bucket when we were talking about who's in the room. I am not an ESOL teacher. I am not an administrator. I am not an author or have anything to do with publishing. So you all are my teachers. You all are the experts there. My background is in AI and machine learning research, and so I will not even pretend to know anything about textbooks in any sense. And I will give you a little flavor of what I think the future of AI is from a technical perspective. And so in one line, the future of AI is agentic. And this idea of AI agents is probably something that you've started to hear. Well, raise your hand if you've started to hear about this idea of agents. AI is agents, right? Not just one AI, you have many AIs. What does that really mean? So really, yes, I believe that the future of AI is agentic. And what does agentic mean? In one sentence with a semicolon, it means that it's not a single model that does everything. So this is going to echo the sentiments of a lot of what my fellow panelists have already touched on, but it's really thinking about what are the right use cases? What do you want to get out of AI? And then it's an agent that ensembles different kinds of submodels, different specialized models that do specific things better than any other model. And then ensembling them together with an agent layer, that's the orchestrator. And that agent is going to be picking and choosing the right kinds of models for the right use case. So what does that all mean? So digging into that, so beyond generative AI. So within generative AI, you might be fine-tuning a pre-trained large language model. So you might have something like ChatGPT or Copilot. Those are large language models. And you might fine-tune one of those. You might fine-tune it to create a specialized submodel. So Rachel brought up a great example of translanguaging, right? Finding those opportunities to expand access by making the language more accessible in their home language. And one case of that is fine-tuning for especially lower resource languages. So for example, one thing that we have done is to be able to support over 250 languages, including lower resource languages like Haitian Creole. So when you're working with a Haitian Creole learner, Haitian Creole speaker rather, who's an ESOL learner, they can now get additional explanations that are in the context and also in their home language. And so how you do that, you fine tune, you create samples that are then more conversational in that target language, and the model is then adjusted to accommodate those different languages. I'm gonna move this little, there we go, okay. The other area is multi-armed bandits are back in fashion. I know this is not a CS, a computer science conference, but multi-armed bandits and reinforcement learning. So a lot of other kinds of models that are going into personalization engines. So not just asking a large language model for that personalization, but actually having collaborative filtering, matrix factorization, whatever it is, these other kinds of tools that are going to partner with these large language models to create personalization. So when we talk about personalized practice, how can we do that in a more effective way? And then the third one, and this is really, really focused on the ESOL, and this is if you read our field test with our amazing World Ed partners, you'll see that pronunciation practice is a huge one. And so what you can do there is you can use neural acoustic models. So that's a kind of AI that's trained on hundreds of accent and speech patterns in order to detect comprehensibility and context. So instead of accent reduction or instead of soundbite transcription where you're being matched soundbite by soundbite, and if you don't talk as fast or your voice is higher pitched, or you have a quiet voice like mine, whatever it is, you're not being benchmarked against how similar do you sound compared to an example speaker, but instead you're being assessed on the overall comprehensibility. And that's really important to help develop the confidence of ESOL learners. All right, so I'm going to give you some examples of what that agentic, we get used to seeing these different user interfaces, but really unpacking under the hood, what does that mean? So one example here is a large language model plus a neural acoustic AI is how you can get real-time speaking practice. So for example, in this feature, this is a role play setup. And what you have is a large language model that's driving the text that's going to go into it. This could be a fine-tuned large language model that is driving the language level. Let's say it's driving all of the outputs to be in NRS level 3. So it's going to drive the outputs of the text. And then the neural acoustic model is in charge of listening to the learner and predicting what they're trying to say. So that's the comprehensibility piece with the creative spoken output. So that's one example. And another example here is natural language processing. So things like topic modeling and text-based analysis, plus a large language model can get you, for example, AI-powered insights for teachers. And so what that means is the natural language processing through topic modeling methods can help you understand what are the different kinds of conjugation exercises, the different kinds of vocabulary and context exercises, what are the different skills under the hood and commonalities in terms of gaps that a student might have based on that material. And then pairing that with an LLM that can create recommendations and insights, that's how you get a lot of these kinds of AI-powered tools for insights. So I'm going to be a broken record here, but I'm echoing exactly what Rachel said. It's really the why before or under AI. So before, and I think several folks have been, and I think Katie also, you mentioned this around, think about what is the problem that you're trying to solve? What is the skill that you're trying to teach? And then work backwards from there, reverse engineer that. So from that end goal, that problem that you're trying to solve, what kind of AI do you need? And sometimes, the irony of being an AI developer is sometimes we say, sometimes the best AI is no AI, right? We always say, don't predict something that doesn't need a prediction. So for example, you don't always need to predict a learner's level. If they know their level, or if the teacher knows their level, you might not need to have that as a prediction problem. So think about first, what problem are you trying to solve? And then think about the different ways that exercises can be augmented by different kinds of AI. And within a textbook, different ways that you can use AI to generate additional practice. And so here on the right side are two examples of this. So the first one is a fine-tuned model for Haitian Creole, and the second one is an example of a neural acoustic model. And I think I'm actually handing it to myself because I think I'm kicking off this.
Just make a comment back. So we want to respect everyone's time. So I just want to give a little note to the panelists that you're going to curtail your considerations, not that they are curtailable, but perhaps speak a little more swiftly. And we want to make sure that we have about 5 minutes for the questions. We are still getting questions on the app. And just to let you know that we do know that Donna's recording wasn't audible, but we're going to fix, you'll be able to get that on the resources. So what are the considerations?
All right, thank you, Jamie. And I hope you're all not sick of me yet. So I'll keep this one really pithy, 3 words only. So context is king. And so what does that mean? Really, there's 2 flavors of context. There's the learner's context, and I'll let my brilliant fellow panelists who know a lot more about this from the practitioner side talk more on this. But essentially, learner's context is thinking about where is the learner in the context of their journey. That's how we can really meet them where they are. So that's level of proficiency in the practice exercises, and that's multilingual support. So for example, even within reading comprehension, there's different levels of that. There's reading comprehension to identify the main idea versus, versus retelling key details and so on. So that's the first flavor of context. The other flavor of context, which I'll double click into, is learning context. And so there's a bit of a double meaning here. So there's the context in which learners are doing their learning. So are they learning this vocabulary for healthcare versus construction versus for general ESOL? And the second piece of it is the context in which the AI is learning. And the first one, the context in which learners are doing the learning, I'm gonna kind of symbolize with that tissue box, because tissue is a great example of that. The word tissue might be Kleenex tissue if you're talking about everyday ESOL, but if you're in a healthcare IT context, tissue could be muscle tissue. So that's the context in which the learners are doing that learning. Now, the bowling alley, I'm going to give credit to Jamie for coming up with this picture. This is what we're going to use to symbolize this context in which the AI is learning. And here we're talking about the guardrails. We're talking about the walled garden, and we're talking about the training materials and content that form the context in which the AI is learning. And so the good news is these are not mutually exclusive, and they actually coexist. So in order to get the tissue box versus muscle tissue differentiation, you're going to need to create the context for the AI to learn. And so the AI creates embeddings on that content, which now enables something like this. Or now, when the AI is integrated with and trained on that healthcare context, that learning context for the AI aligns with the learning context for the learner. So now when a learner says, what does tissue mean? It's actually in context of the content. This is as opposed to, right, you're just using ChatGPT out of the box. You say, what does tissue mean? You're going to get a very, very chatty GPT response that's about all kinds of different tissue. And so the key considerations from my perspective here is why AI learning matters. So guardrails on AI are essential, and it is both what we keep in terms of learning context for AI, and that's as important as what we keep out, right? We talk a lot about guardrails in terms of don't let a learner go off topic, about safety, and that's important, but it's as important to think about what's kept inside the walls of that garden. And then finally, learner and learning contexts are really working together, and when that happens, that's how you get personalization. I hope that was fast enough. And I'm going to pass it on to Donna.
Well, I don't know about following a scientist, but thank goodness there are scientists with us. So I'm going to bring us back to reality and the ground, adult learning theory. But adults learn differently than children, as we all know. They bring their own experiences and motivations. And so I want to bring this back to the textbook and AI. When I see people going in the exhibit hall and they're looking at textbooks, they're looking for certain things. And we should be doing that when we use AI. Is it level appropriate? Is it relevant? Is it flexible? Does it build critical thinking? Is it collaborative? And is it self-directed? And think about that. And I'm going to show you in context here. Another example from Ventures, and this is from book 1, and it's from the health unit. In Ventures, every unit starts with a big picture, and this one is, at the doctor's office. And this is one really wonderful way to bring people alive. And so I chose the medical assistant. And, students, they're thinking about their futures. They're thinking about their careers and career pathways. So instead of the old way where you'd sit there and you'd go, I would go the doctor's office and I'd interview a medical assistant. I say, what do you say? But you don't have to do that anymore. You can go to AI. And so the prompt for GPT was make an 8-line dialogue and see what happens. Now, as we all know, so this wasn't too bad for the first time, a little wordy. So what would happen here? What happens when you put something in and it's not the right level? What do you tell ChatGPT? Regenerate, regenerate, regenerate. So you're sitting there 3-4 times and they're regenerating. Well, I learned something really interesting from Lori Howard, who works for CASAS. And this is in your resources. But I learned about this framework called CEFR. Have you heard of that? Boy, is it going to really help you and save time. It stands for Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, and it's a system used to describe language ability in a standardized way. So you can tell ChatGPT to use a level A1 in CEFR, and it comes up with this great thing that you don't have to regenerate again. So that saved a lot of time here. So there's one that's pretty good, better than the other one. So going back to those key considerations, when you think about going to AI to make a dialogue, to make it level appropriate, you can use that CEFR to make it appropriate. Is it relevant? Well, you can ask students to choose the job they want. And is it collaborative? Well, students work together using that dialogue. And then flexible, they can change the level, and reflective, they can think of the last time they interacted with a medical assistant and what they said. Next is.
Okay, so I'm going to be very fast. We can do it in 1 minute. Here we go. Next, please.
Christy. Okay.
So you see some things on the slide. I'll just mention number 3. Cognitive academic language proficiency, which is intermediate and above. That can take a very long time to develop. I think it was Cummings way back in the day. It was 5 to 7 years. So in my program, students repeat a level. Our courses are 8 weeks and very intensive. 8 weeks go by, and sometimes they need to repeat. Using the same textbook, the same units is not engaging. So this is a way that we can keep our teaching fresh for those students. Next, please. So I don't know if any of you saw the report from Bill Gates just a couple of days ago, maybe it was yesterday. He said that in 10 years, many jobs will be obsolete, including doctors and teachers. I don't know if any teachers have ever asked your students that question, if they would rather be taught by a robot or by artificial intelligence. I asked mine. I don't know if they were completely honest. They said no, but I think this makes it ever important for us to infuse textbooks and generative AI outputs with our personality, our humanity. This is where we connect with our students, and we need to keep doing that. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Christy, and everybody else. I'm sure that some of you had a chance to see this adorable picture of a baby peacock doing the rounds on social media not so long ago. I've linked in the resources to the Snopes article that describes how and why this is not really what a baby peacock looks like. And so what I'd like to come to here in considerations is around the skills that learners need to develop. So if we move on to the next slide, I've shown an image, and this is also linked in the resources, of what the World Economic Forum just said very recently, what the core job skills are that people need to learn. And if we click through those one by one, I've highlighted some of the most important ones. So if we click, I think 3 or 4 times there, please. Cognitive skills, including creative analytical thinking, self-efficacy, resilience, motivation, curiosity, working with others, leadership, empathy, that's that collaborative element, and of course, technology skills and digital literacy. And what I want to focus on, I think, most here, and if we move over onto the next slide, we'll see it. Again, if you could click, there we go, perfect. 2 things I'd like to focus on very quickly. One is analytical thinking, and the other is AI literacy. So into analytical thinking, I've shown an example. If you click next, this is an exercise drawn from the academic study chapter in the Oxford Picture Dictionary on the topic of internet research. Some great examples of questions here that you would use. You could use this to interrogate an internet search, but you could just as easily use this to interrogate an AI tool. And what we want our learners to come away with is an understanding of how to think about those guardrails for themselves as well. So in a future academic or work context, understanding, are there any AI policies that I need to be aware of at my school or in my workplace? Are there any types of information that I should be very careful about entering, just as I think Christy said earlier about personal information? Critical thinking is, okay, That's a cute peacock. I wonder, is that what peacocks really look like? Let's be curious and use that to stimulate our critical and analytical thinking. So those are just two very fast examples of the types of skills, A, that learners need to develop in general, but B, that are especially important in the age of AI. And we're applying those skills all the time ourselves when we look at AI-generated content and we think about what we're getting back from it. We need to be helping learners to develop those skills as well. So my final slide, final two slides here, considerations, is around AI for better outcomes. And as at least two other people have already said today, keeping humans in the loop. My final slide here is a QR code for a paper I think you'll all find very interesting. It's also linked to in our resources. It's around humanizing technology. So please feel free to take a look and download that paper. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna go so fast. Okay, so I think one of the very exciting things about a disruption is that it brings us all together. So because we're all so darn fearful, because annoying big tech companies try to tell us where our jobs are going when they've never stepped into a classroom. So we're shaking in our boots, Bill. But the beauty of that is that we have in the room publishers, ed tech developers, whatever the heck my job is, teachers, all here together to map this out together. We have more questions probably than answers. And there's a beauty in that, and that we can collectively form the answers together. So, you know, we have an AI integration framework that's full of questions that you can ask to people like Victoria, or to people who publish your textbooks, along with questions you can consider with your colleagues, or as you are plotting out your own learning around AI. So there's that. I think maximize potential, minimize waste, support evaluation, think, you know, about what kind of data you can collect, how you can really track how this is working to improve learning. Defining problems and personas is important. Christy already talked about that. We do a lot of work in the open in terms of bringing people together to talk about the ways that they use different tools, the ways that they use different textbooks, as well as the use of open educational resources. How can you take the things you generate with AI and put a license on them, make them reusable, and share them with other teachers so that we're not all just generating and regenerating the same materials? AI literacy, we are beginning the work of framing AI literacy and working toward what that looks like when we incorporate it into adult education settings. And we've started that work in this brief, and it continues today. It's not finished, but that might give you some ideas of what exactly we're talking about when we say AI literacy. So let's take everything we learned from many years of ed tech and the emergency remote disruption to our field, where we learned a lot, and apply that to the current disruption of AI, as well as the recent disruption. I won't name too many names about that one, but we're having some drops in attendance because of somebody. So just thinking about what have we learned and how can we apply that to the things that we're doing now and the problems we're trying to solve right now, because we have, as a field and as colleagues, been here before, and we can map this out together.
All right. You all have been such great listeners, so thanks for sticking with us. My final question is just how should educators and those in the educational ecosystem approach AI? And so I want to go to a movie, Hidden Figures. I don't know if you're familiar with this movie or not, but wonderful movie about a group of women, specifically it focused on Dorothy Vaughan, who was leading NASA's West Area Computing Group at the time during the space race. And she recognized that IBM computers were going to replace her group. They were literally doing manual calculations of really complicated math, and the IBM computer had been introduced, and she realized that things were going to change. And certainly we know that AI is going to change things in our classrooms, in our publishing industry, in the way that we think about textbooks. But we can learn from Dorothy because she embraced the technology.
She went to the library, learned everything she could about computers. She became the resident expert in IBM. And because of that, she future-proofed her team. She was ready for whatever the change would be. And they were no longer sitting in a room doing manual calculations, but instead they were taking charge of the IBM computing that was taking place. They were the leaders in this emerging technology. And I think that's where we need to be as educators, is saying there's changes afoot. And instead of hiding from them or fearing them, let's learn everything we can. Let's celebrate that we get to talk to each other about these things. We get to learn from experts, and let's come together and find ways to future-proof our profession, our textbooks, and make sure that we are giving the best products to our student in this current context. I'm going to skip this one, but I wanted to just also say, just as a word of encouragement around this, that in my role at UT Arlington, I train the next generation of ESL teachers, and it's such a joy to work with them. I assign my teachers to look through a unit of ventures. I, of course, tell them what good pedagogy looks like. I give them the criteria of what are you looking for here? And so they look through the ventures lesson, and then we take that exact same objective and we feed it into ChatGPT. And I ask the students to evaluate the difference between these two. And I go in that without any preconceived notions of what they're going to say. But yet here's one of my current students from this semester who from this activity said, I would feel more comfortable teaching the ventures lesson because of its structured approach and extensive teacher support. The ChatGPT lesson is shorter and requires more teacher preparation. And so even these emerging new teachers in our field are recognizing the value that textbooks have, the value that textbook authors that are bringing so many decades of experience have, and are recognizing, as I said before, that that AI is going to supplement and not supplant. Thank you so much. I'm going to pass it back to Jamie.
So here is the link to the slides and resources, and it's also on Whova, although technology being what it is, it seems to keep disappearing, but it's in there. And we do have a number of questions, but I want to respect your time. So if you'd like to stay for the question, there's no one following us, so we're happy to answer some questions. But if you need to leave, we'll certainly give you that time. Let's take a look at our questions. Yeah, 4:10, I think, is when we ended. So this is a question to Donna and Victoria. The school is using Ventures and they're wondering if Ventures contents will be integrated to PACE AI. Okay. It was a not yet. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So Donna says, thank you for letting us think about that. Donna, any plans to include example prompts into Ventures books in the future, fourth edition, to get our students to use AI tools effectively? Donna says it's a great idea. Publishers listening, it could be publishers of another sort. Oops, sorry. So this I thought was a question that came up a great deal earlier, and I think it's to everyone to consider, but how can you manage AI in the multi-level classroom? So if anybody wants to come up and give their answer.
Sure. I mean, I'll just say that that's one of the ways we see a lot of teachers using AI tools is to differentiate. And so I think what I usually like to say to teachers, because it's, I think, manageable, is 3 levels. So for everything that you do, consider 3 levels that you can provide, not just the content and how it's leveled in terms of Lexile, but also the scaffolding and the activity. So can you provide to one learner something just to read, to one learner something that they need to fill in the blank, and then to one learner something where entire sentences are missing? Can you provide 3 different variations of the same thing? Certainly AI can help you do that, whether it's using Pace AI to relevel content, whether it's in Ventures where there are actually some of those examples, or if you're using something like ChatGPT and you have the content like a leveled reader and you just ask it to pull out key vocabulary and put blanks in instead, that whatever tools you have, there are many different tools that can be used, I think, to manage this.
And I'd like to echo Rachel's comment that most of the textbooks that have been published and the picture dictionary, I would say anything that's been published in the 21st century has that leveling for their units. But what you find is that variability also comes in interest. So if you have a reading, like Donna was saying, on a medical assistant, but the students really have no interest in medical assistant, then you can give them the model of the reading on medical assistant and say, please make something on this. Content, process, product, differentiation, absolutely. So those are all the questions that we had on the Menti. Did you get anything in the chat, Drew?
No, yes, we put all of them.
Okay, that's great. Well, those are the questions. Any questions in the room that you'd like to share that you didn't put in the Menti?
Jamie,
You get special
may I just add
dispensation.
something? I am seeing other questions on the Menti board myself.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay. So let's put this to Donovan. For Pi, have you used this with learners? I know that speaking tools are not always friendly with accents.
No, I was one person that I tutor, and it worked okay, but someone else asked me that, and I really don't know. They're going to say, I don't understand.
Okay, so the question, the answer to this question from Donna is that we don't know. You know, so it'd be a good opportunity. How do we get the leveled readers, et cetera, from AI, from prompts? Do we note the text in the prompt? Is there a specific AI tool to use? Not sure which presenter mentioned leveled readers. So Katie, you want to come up and?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to what we were just talking about, actually, that you would, and using the CEFR levels, like you mentioned, Donna, would be an option where you're saying, I'm interested in a reader for an A1 and an A2 level, or the prompt could just include, I'm looking for, this is the base text that I'm interested in, or you could have it generate the text for you. So you're either supplying what the students are going to read and where you're going to ask it to generate something. And then from there, you ask it to level it up and level it down. And so you can do that by using like specific CFR levels if you want, or you could just say, I'm looking for something that's slightly above this proficiency level in English and slightly below. In terms of specific tools, I would ask our AI experts on that because I don't know what would be the best tool. I do know that one of the challenges that was mentioned is that things like ChatGPT sometimes are not really designed for language learners and are a little bit too broad. And so more kind of narrow language learning models that are more for our learners are going to be a better place to go. But for examples, I would pass that over to you guys.
And I do think some of the questions were answered, which is why so we're at the, well, we'll try this. Let's see what happens. What AI tools do you recommend for translation? Are there any that can be better trusted for accuracy? Such a good question. Deep L. Deep and capital M.
It's actually hard, you know.
ACI does translation.
And in low resource languages, so I think that's.
Say it again.
Amazing. They do the most and in
Oh,
low resource languages.
yeah.
Well, there's one more I was thinking of, but yeah.
If you had to pick just 3 lesson topics for developing AI literacy in high beginning intermediate ESL, which topics would you suggest? That's a rich question.
That sure is. I spoke about AI literacy just towards the end, but somebody, I think Christy, you spoke about AI literacy earlier on as well.
Maybe you compile a list and ask students what they've heard of and what they haven't and what they would be interested in learning about.
I think at any level, vocabulary that's appropriate to that level, vocabulary in relation to AI, like prompt is an important word, for example. Some level of appropriate use or safe use, I think at any level is appropriate to talk about. And then I think ways of engaging with or measuring what works best for you as an individual would be valuable at any level, I think. You could stagger or scaffold those according to the level of your learners.
There's no open resources. They have AI EDU. So we can see what they have been teaching about AI literacy in secondary high school context, which I think we can be inspired by.
So that was for the virtual audience, Day of AI and AI EDU. Yes, that was the one that I answered. Okay. Let me just check that we've gotten everybody that. Thank you, Claire, for letting me know about those additional questions.
Jamie, there
One
was
question, Victoria. Yeah. Can Pace AI recognize images? If we upload an image, Pace AI can generate several different lesson plans based on the image.
Good question. Short answer is there would be an image, the images would be recognized, but we generate them based on text. So if it's in text on an image like flyers, then yes, we can generate lessons based on those. If it's an image standalone, then no, we don't generate lessons from that.
Baby peacock.
Not a baby, not yet.
That's a not yet. That's a not.
Yeah, we're working on a couple things where we may also extend this to different kind of multimodal, so videos, images, things like that. Yeah.
Claire, were you going to say something? Claire, had you wanted to say something?
There was one question back there which flipped through, Jamie. If you go back, we may find it. Keep going. This one. May I speak to this one?
Right past. Please answer it.
So I actually had a talk with some of our AI specialists at OUP about this because I thought this question might come up. And we're in very early days with AI, everything at the moment, and everything is changing around us. But the guidance I want to share with people when you're thinking about the work of authors, copyright, intellectual property, think about that as mindfully as you would think about, for example, photocopying materials. Think about it in relation to if you take work that other people have created and you feed it into a system where you don't have control over where that information will go once you feed it in, then be mindful of the people whose work is sitting behind that. I think, it's not as simple as pushing a button on a photocopy machine. There's all sorts of flavors to this. But I think the important thing is to think about the people who've created that content and what happens to it when you put it into a large language model, which may or may not be using your inputs for training purposes and how that information gets shared. So I just wanted to share that as a form of mindfulness, which is just as much part of every other mindfulness that we bring to our work with AI at the moment. Perhaps somebody else may have something to add to that.
Thank you, Claire. And I'm sorry I skipped that. I know that I've had conversations with Victoria about PACE and what they do. Do you want to explain?
That's a great idea.
I'm not advertising PACE, but it gives you an idea if you're talking to someone to ask those questions, what the answer you want is.
Great idea, yeah.
Thank you, Jamie. And I think this is also something that comes up in the AI integration framework as well, around what kinds of questions should you ask AI developers? And the thing here, really, the key is that are they building walled gardens to protect your content so that they're not, whatever they do with your content, they're not then rinsing and repeating and using that same material with another publisher or with another institution that doesn't have the license to be distributing or using your textbook materials. So that's really, it's the walled gardens, it's setting up those the parameters for that. And then also with AI, it's really, you know, if you think about copyright as the right to copy and redistribute, it's really for AI, what we need is not the copyright, but we need the learning rights. And so making sure that whatever AI developer you're working with is more concerned about the learning right than about the copyright.
Claire, do you want to come back on that, or is that, do you feel?
I'm completely with Victoria on that. I think the difference between an open large language model and a walled garden model is really, really important to keep in mind here. And I know that, you know, Rachel would have similar comments to make as well about understanding who the model is, how they're using what you're putting in, where what you're getting out is coming from, and so on. We know that there's been a big article about Meta in the news recently, who elected to not follow copyright or learning like process for training their model. And that's got a lot of authors very upset at the moment.
Thank you. I think our 10th one was about the, we did that. We did number 10. Oh, no. That was, yeah, number 10 was done. Any other comments from the panel before we say au revoir to our guests? Please thank our panelists, both virtual and I'll go ahead and put back up the link to the resources. So you should be able to see the resources, and we're here not all week, very shortly, we're leaving. But if you need to come on up and ask something, and I will say au revoir to our online Christy, and I don't know where you've gone to. There you are, I think. I think if I stop share, you'll show up. There you are. Okay, so let's wave goodbye. You can't see the crowd of 3,000 people.
Bye, everybody. Thanks so much for hosting, Jamie. You're an amazing facilitator, of course. And thank you for bringing us together.
Sorry, Claire, we missed what you were saying.
I said, thank you for being an amazing facilitator.
Oh, well, I needed you to help me with the questions, but thank you. Okay, bye, everybody.